Hey, welcome back to Techopolis 3, where in the last video, we massively expanded the ME system to incorporate a bunch more auto-crafting to eventually on-demand automate the production of elite technium, which is a pretty huge step, because now I can move on to the ultimate tech. Before I go too deep into the ultimate, I would like to passively automate elite technium, like I've done for the other two, but I have one big problem keeping me from doing that, and that is power. I have 12 biogenerators, which are fine, but I don't like the idea of just spamming out a ton of biogenerators. And even if I was to upgrade these to purified biofuel, it's still the same problem of just spamming out biogenerators. So that leads me to the plan for this video, which is to try to build a reactor. And a fairly sizable one too. I'm not sure how much I can do in one video. Depends how hard it is to automate some of this stuff. But at the very least, I should be able to make a reactor that's more powerful than 12 biogenerators. So yeah, I think that's it. There's going to be a few pretty big problems to solve along the way. Like, how do I fuel it? I almost need better power to be able to produce better power. Not to mention all of the extra processing that needs doing. But I doubt uranium is going to be too big of a problem compared to just building up the bulk of the structure. So I guess that's where I'll start. And because I need everything in such huge quantities, I may as well make patterns for it all. So I'm going to need a reactor controller, which needs a bunch of reactor casings. I'm going to need a ton of fuel rods. There's basic and then there's reinforced. I'm not sure what the difference is. There's reinforced for everything, so a higher tier reactor? I don't know. Maybe I can swap it out later down the line. Do I need reactor glass? It's not any cheaper, so I might not bother. But it could be worth making a bit of it. I'll see how I feel afterwards. Control rod, definitely need those. Solid access port and energy power tap. And I don't know what the rest of the things do. So I think these are the only things I'll have to worry about. The controller and the ports, I only need the one, so I'm not going to bother making patterns for those. But the others, yeah, I need patterns. Starting with the reactor casing. That needs steel casing and graphite bars. Steel casing is probably the harder one, but even that's not too bad. Glass isn't a big deal. Lead, I'll probably need to find a way to automate that. But I don't need too terribly much of it. But I think the big one is steel. And that one I might make a custom pipeline. Because I just need one charcoal and one iron, and it makes one steel. It needs to go through the metallurgical infuser twice, and then get smelted. I can probably have that happen automatically. I'll worry about building up those things later. I'm just going to make the patterns for now. But that should take care of steel casings. How about graphite? A charcoal and an arc furnace. That is very easy. Well, I think that's it for the reactor casings. How about the fuel rod? Graphite, iron, glass, and uranium. Simple enough. I'm going to be manually supplying the uranium, so I'm not going to automate that just yet. The rest is fine. I'm probably going to need an automatic way to make iron. I can figure something out. Moving on. Control rod. More or less the same stuff. I just need a recipe for a piston. And that's it for the automatic things. I'll just put those all in place. And now I need to figure out a thing for steel. The metallurgical infuser is already a slightly annoying thing to automate, but I think without too much extra on top of that, I should be fine. I will just get an energized smelter as well. They're pretty cheap, and I can upgrade each tier as well. That's not a big deal. So if I'm going to automate this, I don't have enough space here, so I'm going to grab the metallurgical infuser and move it somewhere better. But now that I think about it, I don't really have room everywhere else. So if I'm making more space, I may as well just expand this bit backwards. It's really not that big of a deal to knock out a bit more space here. And then the first thing to do is just get these metal presses out of the way. I can just stick them up against this wall now. And then without too much more effort, I can clean up the rest of this area. And now I've got a great little spot to put down the metallurgical infuser. So I've got the infusing factory here. It has its input, which for now just takes the steel. Then I need it to output into a logistical sorter, and that will separate between returning to the ME system and entering the smelting factory. Oh, and even one more. It needs to be able to go back in. So I'll send the steel dust on green, the enriched iron on yellow. Actually, I'm going to change this a bit. The steel dust can be orange. So then green is for the completed items that just return to the ME system. Then yellow means it still needs to go back in. And orange is not quite finished, just needs an extra processing step. Oh, and one small thing that I completely forgot about. I'm going to move all of this one block forwards so that I can give myself enough room to string some power around the back. So this system should hopefully just work. I'll test it in a minute. There's just one more thing I want to do. I'm just going to make some speed and energy upgrades because I'm still going to be using this furnace for automatic products. I want it to be somewhat efficient. So with this now connected in, I can queue up steel. Yeah, I don't have iron though. So I'll just do a small amount and see if it works. Oh, right. I can't just chuck the items straight in. Okay, I need something like this to make it work. The pattern provider goes into an intermediary chest, which then sorts between the two sides. There's probably an easier way to do this, but this is the best I could do with what I've got. So now let's see if it works. Okay, yes, it does. I just had to set this to be extra. Oh, but the logistical sorter doesn't auto-export. Okay, one more small revision. I need another intermediary chest to store the enriched iron. And yes, it does automatically go back into the side. And then that goes into the smelting factory to give me the steel. Right. I think that's that. I just have one more problem to solve, and that's this. I don't have enough channels. But I think there's one fairly simple solution here, and that is to get some covered cables and turn them into dense cables. Because dense cables carry 4 times as many channels, so they'll take 4 times as many channels from the P2P tunnel. But it can only hold those 32 channels on the dense cables. So as soon as it goes back to the fluix, this is now only 8. But that's fine, because it's still able to transfer the 2 into there. And I can see 10 carried channels, and everything should be connected. So, now, that is steel automated. I do wonder, one more thing. To get the iron, I can just smelt the dust. Is it the same with lead? Yes. So then I could just do this, and then smelt the dust, and that's the ingots automated. So now, I can start making that reactor. That was quite a lot of preamble. But let's see. How big can I make this? Let's say I wanted 100 reactor casings. I'm missing ore, but otherwise that's fine. I can just grab myself a bunch of iron and lead. I think just to get a rudimentary reactor set up, I think I'll start with a smaller design and I can expand out later. But I'm not going to go the absolute minimum. So I think 4 control rods, 12 fuel rods. I need uranium. Hang on, I'll come back to that. And then 2 stacks of reactor casings. I can make more if I need to. Except apparently I'm missing ingredients. And I think I know what I'm missing. I'll just make a pattern for it. And now I'm not missing it anymore. Oh, right, and one more thing that needs doing. I need to get a charcoal pattern in here to go on the left side of the arc furnace. And that makes the graphite for me. Very slowly. But yeah, this is working perfectly fine. Even the steel's not that slow. It's still only doing 5 at a time, but that's not bad. Well, now to just make the rest of this. I should only need 1 solid access port, and it's fairly cheap. And similarly, 1 power tap. Again, pretty cheap. But then, if I want to get the reactor controller and the fuel rods, I need uranium. The rest here isn't really that big of a deal. Elite technium machine, sure. It's somewhat expensive, but I've already got everything I need for it. So all I'm missing is that uranium. And this is going to be a bit of a doozy. The only way to get the ingot is through the dust. And I could get the dust through any ore crystal and an elite technium nugget, but that is way too expensive when I could just go mine the ore. And when I went for the diamonds, I found a ton of deep slate uranium, but deep slate uranium has the same problem as deep slate diamond in that it doesn't work to make the dimensional ore. But in this instance, I think I should at least try to find the normal uranium ore before I do the deep slate switcheroo, because I don't know how rare this is. It's found in exactly the same ranges. I'm gonna have to sit quite close to the top of that range so that I don't get it in deep slate, and I only need 8 of it. So let's see how I go looking for this. I found yellowite, which apparently doesn't exist. So I'm just gonna assume this doesn't have a use case. Also, just thinking about this, because most caves tend to go quite deep, I might not be able to use the caves to try and find this ore. I might just have to mine for it myself. I think Y8 is the lowest I can go before I start encountering deep slate. But I am going to be running into a bunch of underwater caves. I guess I'll mine in a different spot then. But I'm still going to be coming across a lot of caves regardless of where I mine. This is going to be harder than I thought. Oh, but I might have found some either way. No, it's peridot. So that's a second yellowish ore that's going to be confusing me. Oh, here's some. It's low enough to be partially in the deep slate, but I only need 8 ore, and there's enough here. Well then, I don't know if I got lucky, or maybe if I just should have been caving from the start. Well, time to go back home. So the first thing I'll do is turn that into the dimensional ore, then I'll just swap out the coal temporarily, and this should very slowly work away at getting some uranium for me. I will just throw a machine frame on, because as long as I'm kind of babysitting this, it doesn't matter that it's using a lot of power. Yeah, 1000 FE per tick is a lot. But I don't need much. I might just need the 2. I'll put it through the processing and see. I think I got enough. I'm guessing like the diamonds it's 10 times. And just to check, yeah, the dust is 1-to-1. So I should only need 14 ingots, because I need 2 for the controller, and then the last 12 for the fuel rods. Okay. I think that's enough to get started with the reactor. Ooh, but one more thing. I'm going to get a few more buckets and steal some liquid nitrogen, because that should be a coolant. If this doesn't work, I'll just swap it out with water, but it makes sense that liquid nitrogen is a good coolant. So, now to build this up. And I think I'm going to build it up down here, because it's a reasonably large space. I've got room to go either side and pretty far back. I've already got stairs leading into it. I think this could work quite well. I'm going to have to excavate a pretty large space here, possibly even bigger than this, because I reckon I'm just going to dedicate this bottom layer bit to just being power generation, because I need so much of this going forwards. And first thing to go in here is going to be a big reactor. And I reckon it's going to be a 7x7. 7x7x3, I'll say. Although I only got a little more than halfway, and I'm out of reactor casings. I should only need another stack, maybe? And that's more than enough to finish this off. Now to just get the liquid nitrogen in. And it should just be as simple as 1 in each corner, plus 1 in the center. And it does leave some minor gaps. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fill these without creating sources. If liquid nitrogen can even make sources. But it's fine. Also, I made 1 extra access port, so that I can have 1 on input, 1 on output. Now, why is this not forming? Oh, 7x7 is just a little bit too big. But I don't have to tear the whole thing down. I just need to bring the outside in by 1 block. And also, this means I can place the liquid nitrogen slightly better. So, is that going to work? I don't think so, because I have a suspicion that I'm not allowed liquid nitrogen as a coolant. Yep. Okay. Well, now I've got a reactor. Now just comes the problem of fueling it. And as much as I could just stick some uranium in there, I really should automate the production of uranium. And for that, I'm pretty much just going to have to replicate this setup. Because the alternative requires elite technium, and no. And I guess if I'm remaking this, I can take the opportunity to make it a bit better. For example, instead of having to use enriched flint and salt, I can separate brine to create chlorine and turn that into the hydrogen chloride, and then take the hydrogen as the excess from the electrolytic separator, making oxygen. And that covers both of these without the needs for additional items. Then, I guess instead of spamming ambient water collectors, I'll just use a pump. But otherwise, everything else here is going to be pretty much the same. Although I might use the ME system to steal this sulfuric acid instead of creating 4 more thermal evaporation chambers. So I just need to make myself a bunch more machines. And I guess one extra change, instead of this enrichment chamber at the end, I'll have an energized smelter afterwards, so that I can actually turn it into an ingot. Okay, that's a lot of machines. But it shouldn't be so hard now that I've got much easier production of diamonds. It's not too bad to make most of these machines. I mean, I've done everything before. It's just a question of dealing with all of the mechanism stuff and just processing a load of diamonds. But there are a few things that I forgot about, like the fluorite, and then other small things like fluid tanks and chemical tanks. But eventually I can get all of these basic machines. I'll worry about upgrades later, because now I've got to get the dimensional infuser. Oh, I've made the wrong machine. The dimensional ore extractor. I misclicked. Well, I guess I've got a spare dimensional infuser. Now, because I wasted a dimensional machine frame, my maths is wrong, and I have to do all of this again. But I've done this all before, it's just a bit more diamonds and obsidian. But it's still not quite enough to get the control block, because I need more dimensional dust. But I'm going to need so much more of this to get the reinforced machine casings. So I'm just going to see, how many of these do I need? 43. I have 3 spare, so it is 40, which I can actually do perfectly evenly. I just need 3 more teleportation cores. That is perfectly doable. That gives me enough spare dust to make the control block, and then the rest of it just goes towards making reinforced machine casings. And then I'll do one more thing before I set this all going, and that is to get all of the upgrades for these machines. So out of the 11 machines, all of them need energy upgrades, so that's 88 energy upgrades. And then just like before, the ones that use chemical, I won't put a speed upgrade in. Although, because it's easier now to get oxygen and hydrogen chloride, I might put a few speed upgrades in these, because they are a little bit of a bottleneck, but not much, maybe 4. So that comes out to a stack of speed upgrades. I don't have enough glass. But once that's gone through, there's the rest of the speed upgrades. And then 3 of the machines need chemical upgrades. So that's 24 chemical upgrades. Right, I think that's everything I need now. There's likely some stuff that I've forgotten about, but my inventory's full, so I'll just get going. And I'm going to start with the dimensional ore extractor in the corner here. Alright, so the ore goes into the chemical dissolution chamber. I will just put the rotary condensator into the top, and somehow I need to bring the sulfuric acid over into this pipe, but I'll worry about that in a bit. Anyway, next it goes into the chemical washer, which is filled by a water purifier here, taking out of a pump. The pump is in a slightly awkward spot to try and get power, but I can figure something out. Anyway, next it goes into the chemical crystallizer, and then the chemical injection chamber. Ooh, purification chamber is also next, but this is where things get a bit funky. The purification chamber needs oxygen from an electrolytic separator. Then the chemical injection chamber needs its own electrolytic separator. So I think I need to make another one of these. Thankfully, they are very cheap. Oh, and I need a chemical infuser. I completely forgot about that. Thankfully, these machines are reasonably cheap. So just trying to lay this out here. The chemical infuser creates the hydrogen chloride to go into the chemical injection chamber. This needs inputs from both of the electrolytic separators, which I guess I can just place there. I need to bring water over to this one so that I can have the oxygen going into the purification chamber. Then whatever the system I have that brings in the sulfuric acid can also bring in the brine to go in here. I'll just dump excess sodium, I don't need it. But then the hydrogen goes in here, and the chlorine, which is output 2, goes in the other side, and that creates the hydrogen chloride. Okay, I think that's that figured out. So then to finish this off, the purification chamber leads into the crusher, which leads into the enrichment chamber. That leads into the smelter. I don't have much room. And the smelter into the reactor. Okay, and I can manage to squeeze the power around, and I can connect this into the reactor so that this all gets power too. Right. What's missing here then? I need something to bring in sulfuric acid and brine, and I think I have a solution. If I just get 2 storage buses and also 2 export buses, I wonder if this'll work. If I can connect a fluid tank via a storage bus. Yes, I can! I will just make these extract only, just so I don't accidentally ruin them. But now I've got brine and sulfuric acid in the ME system. Then I can just bring a P2P thing over here, and presumably I can just connect these in like that. So I need to export brine out of here, and that works. Kind of slowly, but it works. And then liquid sulfuric acid goes into here. I should probably make these export buses quicker though. All I need for that is just a bunch of advanced cards and turn them into acceleration cards. And I'll just put 4 in each. That works. Yeah. Okay, so in theory, all I need to do is just connect this to power and it should work. And there's something right here that produces power. So let's see what happens when I turn this on. It starts to heat up, and it is building power. Enough to power all these machines? Maybe? Maybe not. I mean, they're all running, even if it's on extremely low power. Hang on, I'm gonna connect in the main power, see if maybe now it can manage things a little easier. But I think the answer is still no. Hang on, I at least want to confirm that it's working. So I'll throw a uranium ore in, just to see what happens. It's processing the dirty slurry, so I am slowly getting crystals. And then these all run through the system correctly, and it is able to get me more ingots. Oh, and the more fuel it has, the more energy it produces. It's kind of obvious now that I think about it. So this whole system works, it's just not quite getting enough power yet. Hopefully once the reactor's at full capacity, it can generate enough power to fuel itself. Because if not, this was just a giant waste of time. Yeah, I really just need more power generation. Or actually, I think it's less generation and more transfer. Because I'm running everything at pretty much full capacity. But it isn't getting bottlenecked just yet. It's hard to tell. It's probably worth me upgrading my cables anyway. I could probably go all the way to ultimate. Yeah. I'm gonna need a lot of alloy. I can probably go for a stack of each. I've already dealt with plenty of diamonds and obsidian today. I can deal with a bit more. And it should just be a simple process of swapping this all over. Because I should be able... Oh no. I can't just right-click replace this. I could swear you were able to just right-click replace. No, that was Ender IO conduits. Never mind. Mechanism is a pain like that. Well, as it stands, I've filled the cable, so I guess I'm producing enough power? I'm starting to build up a backlog of uranium. Okay, at least I've confirmed that this works. On my own, I might swap these cables over. I'd cut it out of a video either way, because if I want to upgrade this any further, I'm going to need to upgrade the cables. If I remember rightly... Oh, it's 3,000. I thought it was 1,000. But the reactor on its own is using up 2/3 of that. And if I make this much quicker, yeah, this isn't going to be able to do anything. Well, either way, that is that done for this video. And I just realized I didn't complete a single quest along the way because I forgot to start a few of the dependencies. I'll fix this as well. But next time, I don't think I'll continue down this path. I might upgrade the reactor a bit more, just to get the power generation way more than need be. But it might be time to go back to automating elite technium, or at the very least fiddling with the research, because there's much more that I could be doing. But anyway, I'll figure out what comes next on my own, and we'll see next time. But for now, I'm pretty happy with this progress, and I don't think I have anything else to say, so I'm going to call the video here. Bye.